Well, Avram, I'm really excited to talk to you about your 30-day detox. I know you're about halfway through, 17 days I counted. Are you counting?
I am counting, not counting down, but counting,
Okay. How's it been going so far?
Uh, Good, very good. I hesitate and I pause because it's been kind of hard, certain parts about it. I will be the first to admit that we've slipped in some places. I think that the mindset detox is something that you really get what you put into it.
Sure.
And the last thing that you should do is beat yourself up for maybe not doing everything exactly as what's in it.
Yeah.
I know we'll probably talk about some of the places that I've slipped, but the result of it has been really freeing. Exactly as I anticipated and found like 10 years ago, the mindset detox is a reset for you to get clear on what it is that you actually want. And I'm excited to share that because being in it for this long already, I'm already seeing so much of what I was hoping to get out of it in a short period of time.
Sure. That's awesome. I did wonder, how did you pick December of all the months? Is there any specific reason or just happened that way?
It just happened that way. So my wife, Rachel, and I, we went away on our honeymoon in early November and had such a great time disconnecting from everything that it reminded me of this challenge, the mindset detox that I had done in 2010. I had completely forgotten about it.
Okay.
After spending so many months, in quarantine and spending less time out, we were just watching a ton of TV.
Yeah.
And feeling really low, feeling lethargic, feeling unmotivated, and also feeling like kind of disgusted with how much television we were watching. When you're like flipping through Netflix or Hulu and you're scrounging for stuff to watch and you're really you're settling so hard for that next show. You're like, do you want to watch this? Internally, your mind is going, not really, but what else do we have to do? Right. I think the combination of those things is what brought everything together. And, we were coming in at the very end of November and knowing that it's a 30-day detox, the decision to modify it from 2010 and update it and then get right into it was perfect. It was like December 2nd, let's go. Yeah. And we have a bottle of champagne in our fridge that we didn't finish from our honeymoon, that we didn't start it, right? Then we're going to crack that bottle on New Year's. Like that'll be like our thing. Even though we don't really drink, that's something that, it was in the fridge. It was like, oh, cool. Yes, this will be the thing that we end with and we celebrate. So really it was just, we became so tired of how we're feeling and just knowing that something had to change and knowing that in order to change that, it would probably take something pretty drastic. So we're kind of balls out type people. And so like when we do something, we go pretty hard. And when we came up with the updated version of the detox, I really scared myself. It was like pretty intimidating. And now being in it, I got to say the first few days were really tough, but then we settled into a new normal and we're getting these new habits and things that we're excited about and feeling the benefit of. So that's where we're at.
Love it. So you've mentioned some slip ups, and one of my questions for you was, which ones have been the hardest so far?
Again, the absolute hardest has been breaking the habit of TV.
Yeah.
Right. So we slipped on TV. We slipped on TV a little bit. We watched a couple episodes of Shark Tank. That's what we watched. So we've watched like 3 episodes of Shark Tank, and we realized that when we watch one thing, we have something to look forward to. When it's just like all these things together, it just becomes something that fills the space. So TV, definitely the hardest one. Some other places where we have fallen short simply because we've forgotten have been the daily reading and personal development.
Sure.
So we went on a road trip recently and went and visited Scottsdale, and we kind of forgot about it. And we listened to just like a fantasy novel in the car. And we realized that they were like, oh crap. Like we listened to like 4 hours of this book, but we didn't listen to anything that really, expanded our mind, our personal development in any way. So we slipped on that because we simply didn't have something in place that was ready. And I think that's one of my biggest tips to people who are going to start the Mindset Detox is like, get yourself ready and have the things prepared that you are going to need to fill the space. Because when you cut out so many of the things that are in the detox, you're sitting there wondering, like, what do you do with yourself? And if you don't have something to do, you're going to default right back to where you were.
Of course. Just like the diet, right? Like
Absolutely.
if you buy all the good foods, then you're just going to eat the cereal again, right?
Yeah. Or like last night, I'm going to be honest, we got back from this trip. We haven't refreshed and refilled the fridge. We had mac and cheese last night, which is fine. Like everybody loves mac and cheese, but that was like the default because there was nothing else that we had in the house. We're like, okay, we'll have mac and cheese. Yeah.
Well, I kind of wanted to go through just one by one through the points and ask you kind of specifically what you've been doing or what the challenges have been. I'm guessing that people who have maybe watched your Facebook Live video at the beginning, and even for myself, like I've had some questions of how would I actually implement that? So I think it would be really helpful for people to just hear kind of how you've done it. So I guess just with the self-reflection we talked about, it could be meditation, it could be journaling. What has that looked like for you so far?
For me, I haven't ever been a big journaler. That's something that like I admire in other people that seems to come to them more easily. I think I get in my own head about it when I get in front of a journal and feel very like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, what do I write? There's a lot of ways, a lot of tools, a lot of free resources out there that can help you establish and get going on a journaling habit. For me, I used to do quite a bit of meditation, and my partner, Rachel, has pretty much never done meditation. And so I heard from a friend of mine a couple of years ago, he just was always recommending this app called Headspace. And Headspace comes with like a 2-week free trial. And I said, all right, what if we do this before bed every single night as, the last thing that we do before bed, settle the mind. And, the cool thing about the app is it's got guided meditations. So if you're new to meditation, you don't have to like figure that out on your own and have the same awkward experience that I have with journaling. And Headspace will just take you through it. And so that's been a really, really powerful exercise that we've been doing, is just listening to 1 or 2 meditations through Headspace and finding that quiet space right before bed. And I don't know if it's just the whole detox in general that's creating this, or if it's the meditations and just finding this really, really relaxed state. I've been having some wackadoo dreams, like just really, really strange stuff. And I enjoy it. I miss dreaming. And I've gotten a lot of that back. So weird side effect of the detox that I wasn't expecting, having more dreams, but also just going to bed, feeling more calm, and I think getting more rest generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, the next one is movement. I know you and Rachel like to walk your dog. I know you told me you guys do some yoga together. What does your movement look like every day? And have you had any specific insights while moving?
It's difficult when it's cold out.
Yes.
So yeah, we walk the dog every single day. When we left New Mexico for a week and went to Arizona, we left the dog with my parents. And so there were several nights when we realized, oh my gosh, we didn't do our movement today. So the days that we're not doing yoga, we definitely make it an even bigger priority to get our walk in. The walk is every day, but when the dog wasn't there, she was our motivation. Yeah. And so we were finding ourselves taking walks at like 9 o'clock at night around the resort that we were at, and we were making loops like 4 times around, and we were waving at the same people like every time, like, hey, and they're like, you're back. And we just did what we needed to do. And I think as we're talking about this, I think the most important part of all this has been having Rachel with me doing it.
Sure.
I think that actually might be one of the surest ways to make sure that you have a great detox, is having somebody who is doing it with you, especially in your home, right there with you. That accountability is great. There's some days that I didn't want to go do it, and she was like, "Hey, we got to go do it." That's a big tip.
That's awesome. I love that you guys can do that together.
Yeah.
Okay, associating with empowering people, I'd imagine you have quite a few around you already, but did you have to make any changes there? Anything significant?
I did not have to make significant changes in regards to that. The first mindset detox I did in 2010, I did. That was a more difficult one for me because I had, at the time, being fresh out of college, I had a lot of my college buddies still in my circle, and the things that we did and were engaged in, including the things that we talked about, were not always positive and not always leaving you feeling filled up. I would leave a lot of those conversations feeling pretty drained. And the mindset detox allowed me to see how I felt and be more present with myself, and feeling the difference between people that fill you up and people that you feel drained afterwards.
Do you have any recommendations for people that might feel like this step is a real big struggle?
I think when you dive into the self-reflection, the meditation, the movement, sometimes it really is doing everything that you can to remove yourself from the current environment that may not be working for you for as frequently and for as long of periods as possible. There are certain circumstances in your life that you simply can't change and can't change quickly. And you have to do your best to create your own space. That's really what the mindset detox is about. And so when you get your daily movement, that's your chance to get out of the house and go for a walk and say, "Hey, I'm doing this thing." And you get that sacred 30 minutes, 45 minutes to yourself. Sometimes that's the best that you can do. Right. And that's really where you have to start. With the holidays and doing it through the holidays, I know that some people would struggle because simply, the family members that you have, you're not gonna just not go to Christmas dinner, because your family's there. But what you might do is find ways to limit your exposure to certain family members. What if you just knew that Uncle Joe is not really the one that fills you up, and so you spent time with your aunt over here on the couch, while people are preparing things in the kitchen, and you just spend time with her? Do your best. That's the best that you can do, and you will feel the difference.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked a little bit about the reading and personal development. You recommended audiobooks too, but what have you been reading specifically? Can you share with us?
Yeah, well, because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm kind of a nerd, there are several books that I've read this month. One of them is called Infinite Giving by Ivan Meisner. And so because I'm a big networker and because I'm always looking at ways that I can contribute to other people, that book really resonated with me. It was given to me as a gift last month. And I hadn't had the opportunity to read that yet. So that was one thing that we picked up right away. Another one is, again, it's another entrepreneurial related book. It's called Profit First. And so my wife and I, with the goals and the things that we want to do with this business and in our personal lives and starting a family together, we find it important to focus on what we can do to not just earn more money, but keep more money from the efforts that we have endeavored. And so just having those books available has been helpful. And then the other thing is I have a huge library on Audible of books. I have like 70 something books on there. And so whenever we haven't had something to read, it's been pretty easy to plug something else in and listen for 15, 20 minutes. Usually like where we're washing the dishes.
Yeah.
I think that's my biggest hack is when you're driving and when you're doing, chores like washing the dishes or folding laundry, that's an amazing time to be able to do that. And I think also if you have children, listening to the audio together, even if they're bored out of their minds, it's still sinking in.
Yeah.
And you can show and lead by example. You know, if you think about the mindset detox and more than just what it can do for you, if you think about it and what it can also do for your family and your friends as a result of you moving through this transformation, it becomes a powerful motivating factor, knowing that, you know, like Gandhi said, like you really can be the change that you wish to see in the world. And so doing that, I think, is a powerful thing.
I love that. Okay, smartphone notifications. This one gives me a little bit of anxiety because I think, what if I miss an email or something? How have you felt? Have you been reaching for your phone? Have you missed anything major? Like, how's it been going?
Yeah. So we'll talk about this later, right? No social media. We'll get into that. That was the biggest thing, right? Was notifications from social media. I did actually turn notifications for social media off years ago.
Yeah.
So I wasn't missing that. But the thing that I found was, I guess this kind of rolls just into the social media point. I did find myself reaching for my phone just to like check social, and then it wasn't there. And it was like, holy crap, the amount of times that I went to go pick up out of habit was mind blowing. Yeah. You know, the notifications though, I'm notorious, and like you can ask my family, I don't take my phone off of silent till almost noon some days. And so people will be texting me and asking me things and I didn't respond. But it's been like this for years. Yeah. I've never missed anything. Yeah. I had a phone call from a friend last week. I was on another call. He called me twice in a row, right? So if your phone is on silent and somebody calls you twice, the second one will go through, right? That's a hack. Let your family know, maybe. Hey, if you really need me, you can call me twice.
Sure.
Yeah. And you know, it's sad, but he was calling me to inform me of the passing of one of our colleagues, you know, and I didn't miss that, right? Yeah. I was able to be there for that. And I think that we think that we need to respond quickly to things, but in life, a lot of things do just actually work themselves out on their own, and you not being there immediately is not a big deal. Me not having children, that's different. Sure. Right? It's different. I recognize that that's different. And it's going to be different for everybody, no matter where you are in your life. But I thought that's worth mentioning as well. You know, I don't have that kind of responsibility in my life right now. That would probably be the biggest thing that I'd be concerned about. If I did have all my notifications turned off, I will probably behave differently, but it won't change that. It will not change that I have my phone on silent during certain times, and that I simply only have text messages and phone calls that come through. I don't have email notifications. That one will kill you. And then, you know, during working hours, I have notifications to be able to communicate with our team. And, you know, that's also something that's not really that invasive. It's working hours where we're doing the things.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, to add to that, I think most parents probably know that you can program certain phone numbers to ring through all the time or text messages. Yeah. So I think you can. And you were very clear in your initial Facebook Live, like customize this to the way that works for you. Some people have to be on demand for their job, but yeah, everyone can turn off Instagram and Facebook for the most part.
Yeah. And you know, like what harm is there in silencing your phone 8 o'clock and later? Like, who really needs to reach you in the evening when you're with your family?
Yeah. So
it can wait, you know?
All right. Positive and uplifting music. I just wanted to share this anecdotally because you knew me back in the day. I didn't dress like an emo, but on the inside, I was an emo. I listened to such depressing music. And I'm not like that so much anymore, but sometimes when I do go back and listen to my old faves, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's putting me in such a bad headspace. So I can definitely relate to how this might be a difficult one for some people, but have you had to make any changes, or do you have any experience with the positive music?
My experience with the positive music, and I can totally relate to what you're sharing, because I have, so my car is a Honda Element. All right. And I love this car because you can go camping in it. You can literally like hose it out at the end of a camping trip. And the one thing that's unique about this vehicle is because it is so old, it only has a CD player. So I recently did take a trip down memory lane with all of my old stuff, and I had the exact same experience. That contrast was heavy, seeing, like feeling like I turned it off. There were certain things that I listened to back in the day they're still like get you pumped up and they're exciting. And you look at the lyrics and you're like, actually, this was positive. But there was a ton of stuff that, like you said, just you feel the difference.
Yeah.
For me, it's funny. I'll just say it, judge me. I listen to a lot of classical music when I'm working because I can't listen to anything that has words in it.
I'm the same way.
And that really puts me at ease. I like how I feel when I'm doing it. I actually feel more productive, more light. The thing that you'll find that's a pretty stark contrast is if you don't listen to radio and you go somewhere into like a shared lobby. Like I was getting my oil changed a couple months ago, and I remember how the TV was on, and it was all this news stuff and advertisement, and I felt anxious just being there and being with it. I think the important thing in the mindset detox in regards to the positive and uplifting music is to give yourself the opportunity to experience other music and other input that you don't normally have, and be present with how it feels. Maybe that's a new thing for people. And I think it is, for most folks at different levels. But the mindset detox will give you the opportunity to feel the difference. Maybe it's something that you never even asked yourself before, just asking the question of how do I feel right now? And just do like a 5-second check-in with yourself, and you will start to notice the difference. If that's something that you normally wouldn't pay attention to, you will feel the difference right away.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, we kind of already covered this because it rolled into a few of the other ones, but no TV, no streaming, social media. You shared that you have watched a couple episodes of Shark Tank, but I did want to ask, how have you, other than that, been filling your evenings? Because it gets dark so early.
Yes.
You can't hang out with other people. I know
Yes.
New Mexico is really locked down. So what have you been doing?
So what we have been doing is a lot of board games. So we love playing board games. We even went and found some games that we didn't have before at our local game shop. And she walked us through everything that we needed to know about this game and kind of introduced it to us. And we picked up 2 or 3 board games that were new for us. And so we've been doing that. The other night, actually, played one of my favorite board games of all time, which is Settlers of Catan. Played it with my best friend growing up, Tim Sellers, and his wife, future wife. They're getting married next year. And we were able to play virtually. So we set the computer up at the end of the table, played the board. We set up the exact same board, and we were able to play together. So we're going to do more of that. The other thing that we are doing is, because it became so apparent so quickly, this is my advice now for you going into this. That that thing we talked about earlier with surrounding yourself with positive and empowering people, uplifting people. Start making plans now for the times that that the default would be like TV. So I have a friend of mine and his wife. We're going to be getting together. We wouldn't normally do this, I think, outside of the current circumstances in the world, but we're going to do a weekly dinner. We've already done one of them, right? So Monday night, Tuesday night, they have like 4 kids. And so what we did and what we've committed to is just coming over there, eating with the family. Like we prepare a meal together, we eat as a family, and then the kids go to bed and we play games, And so Monday and Tuesday night, like what is going on? Nothing.
Yeah.
Unless you create something. So, we've become more intentional with choosing who we're hanging out with. And so that's one of my big tips would just be like, put some stuff on the calendar with people that are going to fill you up right now for the next month, and consider it an opportunity to do something that maybe you wouldn't normally do. Yeah. Because you're going to feel it if you don't plan for the things in advance. You're going to feel the pressure to dive into old habits. And so that's just what we've done.
Well, and I love that you said you probably wouldn't have arranged those weekly dinners if it weren't for this, and maybe if it weren't for kind of the isolation that COVID creates. And so it's
Yes.
actually maybe better, way better than what you would have done on any given Monday or Tuesday night, but you didn't think to do it until now. That's really cool.
That's correct. Yeah, we found that, holy cow, we have been missing out on connection. And with the passing of this friend the other day, it made us really think. We had with her plans to get together and play games, and those plans never became reality because it was always something that we'll do it.
Yeah.
But we never did it.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. No news, no media. How has that felt? Any or again, do you feel like you're missing out?
So what I will say is I haven't been tuned into the news for a long time. Since the first detox in 2000, Mindset Detox in 2010, news, I just haven't listened to the news. I don't have traditional TV. I don't listen to the radio, but where the news always shows up is on social media. Totally. And then it is in conversation with friends and family. Yeah. And so it has been difficult and impossible to avoid in some cases because you do want to be sensitive to how other people are feeling. And at the end of the day, what about you? What about being sensitive to how you feel when you're immersed in that environment? And are you really treating you with total kindness when you think about where we put ourselves and the conversations that we choose to engage in? For me, the last even, 8 months, 10 months of this year have really been about conversational ninjutsu, which is literally saying to people, is it okay if we change the subject? Would it be okay with you if we talked about something different? I understand you feel very strongly and passionately about this, but I want to connect with you.
Yeah. And how do people respond when you say that?
Most people are eager to change the subject. They don't want to be talking about this, but it's the thing that's occupying their mind and their space, which is why they're sharing it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's easy to actually ask somebody a question about themselves and what they're up to and what they're doing. Like, people love to talk. And so they just want somebody to ask them a question. And really, that's where we take ownership in our lives in how, we navigate the world. Is we are just as much responsible for the conversation as the other person across the table from us, because we are participating, whether we think that we are or not. And so for me, it's been a stark contrast when I am around friends and family and business partners and things like that, with the news, because now that's really the primary place that I hear it. And I think just what I shared earlier is my best advice. You have to shift the conversation in order to get it away from the news, because you'll notice when you cut news out, as scary as it is, again, we're talking a lot about how you feel, during this interview. And when you cut it out and then you find yourself in a conversation that is about it, you will feel the frustration, the anger, sometimes the irritability around all of this information that's being shared with you. And sometimes you just want to scream and say enough, especially when you're doing this mindset detox. Yeah. And that's a huge gift, is coming to that awareness of what the actual effect is in your life. You're given the opportunity after this mindset detox to choose what you want to add back in and keep in your life, but you need to experience life without this in order to decide what's really important to you. For me, I'd rather be happy than to be right.
Yeah.
And that's something that I learned from one of these books behind me. I think it's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Something that T. Harv Eker said was, you can be right or you can be happy.
Yeah.
I am so happy to allow people to have their points of view and perspective and have mine and not have to feel like I need to explain it or justify it to anybody so that I can be happy. It's just not worth going to battle with people conversationally day in, day out in a world that seems to be very divided on how they feel about things.
Yeah. Okay. No alcohol and no drugs. Pretty simple, but for me, as a mom of two, I'm telling you, many days I am like, I need that glass of wine at 5 p.m. It's happening. So for me, it's a big, and I know for many people, the biggest and easiest way to just unwind at the end of the day. So, what have you been doing? I know you've shared that the meditation has been part of that, but what do you do to unwind? And do you have any recommendations for people that kind of lean into that? Sounds like you guys already don't drink very much, so maybe
Yeah,
it's not as big of a deal for you.
but it's noticeable because, like, well, first of all, I don't want to make my family sound like a bunch of alcoholics. Okay. It's not it. It's not it. But when we go to dinner and have dinner with each other, and like we went over and we helped set up the Christmas tree, and that took a whole afternoon, and we had Christmas music on and stuff the whole time. And it was so interesting to think about how many times I was thinking about going and grabbing something out of the fridge.
Uh-huh.
And for me, the power in that was just being aware of the fact that I reach and having the time to do some self-reflection on why I reach. Discovering that there are certain things that I want to avoid by reaching. So the thing that I have gained so far from no alcohol is looking at well, I'll just say what it is for me. It's not like this for everybody, but for me, people have heard this before, but then you experience it and you're like, oh, it makes more sense and it doesn't sound so cliche. But really, when people say they want to take the edge off of things,
Yeah.
like it's very true in actually what we are doing when we use alcohol and other substances. We're trying to take the edge off of things. And what that means is that we are simply not comfortable with the intensity of life.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you have to recognize about the intensity of life is that it's actually not a good thing or a bad thing. But I think we are taught, maybe even as early as children, as being a child, that when you get so excited about something, your parent might say, hey, it's okay, sweetie, like calm down. A way that a child may take that is my intensity is too much. So I think that we grow up in various situations believing that the intensity is too much and that it should be reduced. But if you think about the people that you most love to spend time with or watch on television, you're attracted to them because of their intensity, in some cases because of their outrageousness, their willingness to be totally them and themselves. That is a gravitational pull, I think, that every human being experiences. And so when we choose to limit the intensity that we're willing to be, we're actually choosing in some ways to limit who we can be. And that's a scary prospect. Your subconscious is aware of, in some cases, I guess all cases, what it is that you can be and what that intensity is. And so we then just automatically shy away from it without the thinking. The Mindset Detox allows you to take a step back and look at and examine the reasons why you might be checking out and using substances, right? And again, it's like I said a bit earlier, it's not about like cutting alcohol out, and you add these things out, add these things back as you would like to, versus because you just have always done it afterwards. And so for me, it's been understanding how those things have been coping mechanisms and looking at what is the intensity that I am wanting to avoid.
Yeah.
And for me, it's discovering that there's actually quite a bit of self-sabotage and trying to keep myself small, more contained, and more under control, because in some ways worried, I guess, about what I might be if I were less controlled, if I were fully in my expression. Look, you can be intensely sad about things. but you can also be intensely joyful about things. Again, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong, but it is the intensity of life, I think, that we shy away from because we almost aren't sure if we can handle it.
Yeah.
But I think you'll discover that you can, and that there are other ways to deal with it and be with it and accept it. And that's a really cool journey that everybody gets to explore at their own pace.
Well, and even just as you were talking, I was thinking about how I really have chosen intensity in some areas of my life and really sought it out. Like, I love physical challenges. I had 2 natural childbirths, like, because I'm like, I want that intensity.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to like, my family is stressing me out, then I'm like, I don't want that intensity. So I think that's a really beautiful way that you put it because it's not bad. It just is. And we can choose to be in that moment and have it be okay. And
Yeah.
um,
Cool insight, Lauren.
yeah,
That's a good share. Thank you for that.
tossing that in there.
Yeah.
Okay. The very last one, the full day of silence. Do you have it on your calendar? Do you have a plan what you're going to do that day? Do you know what you're expecting to get from it?
I'm glad this interview is happening because I haven't planned it yet. And that's a big boo-boo. Right? So I know with the demands of work and my role in this company, it does require me to speak and communicate with others. And so Rachel and I, my wife, we're planning on a weekend day, because that's the most easy to control. If we're just here with each other and not having to go out and do things, that will be a very simple task. The biggest thing that I learned when I did my day of silence 10 years ago was just how much I try to fill the space by talking. We just talked about alcohol and drugs being something that, numbs and takes the edge off of things. I think sometimes we also use words and language to fill space of uncomfortability. And that was my biggest insight, was realizing just how much I was uncomfortable with periods of not talking. And that's also, like, you think about it, and we talked about the intensity of life. There's also intense uncomfortability. Like, straight up, it's not an emotion, but we feel it deeply. And so what we do is we attempt to fill the space so that we feel more comfortable. But when you fill the space with just whatever's coming to your mind, whatever, you're desperately struggling to maybe make the other person feel more at ease in addition to yourself by filling the space. What you discover is that when you do fill the space, there's an opportunity cost to that. An opportunity cost, meaning that because we chose to fill it with this, there's something else that maybe would have wanted to be here that isn't here. And that other thing that didn't get the chance to show up was something that could have been born of greater intention. And that's one of my biggest takeaways from the Mindset Detox in general, is intention, and seeing how many things that I do automatically on a daily basis without even thinking about it, without reflecting on it, without checking in and seeing what it's really doing or not doing for me. And so the day of silence is intensely uncomfortable, especially for folks who do like to talk.
Yeah.
I think it's even uncomfortable for people who don't really like to talk, because then you realize perhaps there are other things that you might like to mention and say and speak up about that maybe you wouldn't normally, because on the other side of the uncomfortability, you would rather be quiet and trudge through that uncomfortability than to say something that may actually bring you more ease, more joy, and something different.
Yeah. And can you just clarify one more thing for me? Because I feel like if I were to do this day of silence, I would just go for a really long hike and download a bunch of podcasts. But then I'm thinking my head would still be filled with everything that I'm hearing. So it's speaking and like you're not listening to stuff also, or would you leave that up to the person
I
doing
leave
it?
that up. I leave that up to the person. That's a great question because I hadn't even considered that. For me, it was powerful enough to not be speaking. The day that I did it 10 years ago, a couple things were going on. I did not have a convenient time to do it. So I'll say that. I did not have a convenient time to do it. I had work, I had graduate school, and I had to create a video because 10 years ago, I was creating a video every single day talking about something new that I'd never done before. How do you do a video when you can't talk, right? So I had 3 major challenges that day. I went to work. I made a sign. So I was working at the family dry cleaner at the time. I made a sign that said, I'm not talking today, but I can definitely take your order. Just let me know what you want me to do. And most of the customers were regulars, and they thought that was kind of like cute and cool. And so I would just, point at the sign, be like, oh, cool. I got this and this today, and I would put it into the machine and I would turn the register thing around and say, here's your total. And like, boom. And we did it. No issues, right? So it's kind of a cool thing because they're like, that's neat. Maybe it made them think about something different. I don't know. When I went to school, I was frustrated that day because that was the day that either it was the current CEO or the past CEO of Levi's was there at my business school doing a small keynote with like 70 students in the room. And there was a huge chunk that was Q&A.
Yeah.
And I had 1 or 2 questions that I really wanted to ask. And it didn't feel right to me that I would scribble something out and communicate that way and have somebody ask it for me. It felt like, well, that's not really my day of silence. So what I had to do was settle into not being in control. It's kind of a hard one, I think, for most people, and be okay with everybody else asking the questions and deriving what I needed to get out of that day, just by being present and listening.
Interesting.
When I went to Chipotle, I did bring a sign. I said, here's my order. Not talking today, but so there are certain things I think that you just have to do, but I was prepared for those things. And when I went home and recorded the video about my day of silence, I did it with pictures and with signs, and that was how I resolved those things. And those are the major moments of uncomfortability and learnings that I got through my day of silence, which I imagine will be very different for others. And you will not necessarily have a convenient day, but hopefully with some of these tips, you will find a way to make it work and make it possible. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you get out what you put into it.
Totally. All right. That wraps up all of my questions, but I'm really excited to chat with you when you're all done to see if you have even further insights. And do you have anything else that you wanted to share about your experience so far?
I think that we really covered it in each of the questions. I know we're going to break this interview up and share this with people in bite-sized chunks, as well as give people the opportunity to listen in on our conversation today. I would just go back and reemphasize how we started, which is you don't have to approach this as something that you have to do perfectly, but you have to recognize that what you get out of it is what you put into it. Will you come in more prepared so that you are set up to succeed? Are you going to prepare the books for you to read? Are you going to prepare the dinners with friends that will lift you up? Are you going to prepare a playlist on Spotify or YouTube that has different music for you? Those are the things that are going to set you up to do this really well, versus setting you up to fail by reaching for that thing or that activity that you just are already doing automatically. The point is, with the 30-day mindset detox, is to discover who you truly are. And you cannot discover who you truly are until you take away the things that you have added on over time. Maybe it started with intention, but now it's automatic. We're human beings. We change, we evolve. What we need, what we desire, what we dream to have changes and evolves. And I think this is an opportunity for everybody to get really, really clear and maybe even discover that you don't know what you want. That can be a very big thing to discover during this time. And it's a beautiful thing. Revel in the intensity of that uncomfortability. You will discover that it is okay. You are going to be okay, and you are strong and you are powerful enough to make it a month without TV and without news and without social media. It will still be there when you get back. And what you will find on the other side, I already know this because I did it 10 years ago. When you come back into like the real world, it's going to be like, boom. And you're going to feel this stark contrast. And that alone will be a catalyst for you to choose and decide with intention, what do I really want to include in my life moving forward? What do I want in my life moving forward? I want more connection, right? I want more intention. I cannot believe the stuff that I filled up my space with and my time with that were just automatic. Like, I'm stoked to change that up. And I have more energy now for other things. It's interesting. My energy has risen over time with this because I'm allowing other things to show up in the place of all the other stuff I've been using to fill the space.
Interesting. I love it. Well, I can't wait to check in with you again at the end. And this was a great conversation.
Thanks, Lauren. And I appreciate your insight as well. It's definitely been good.
Good. All right.